Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining again the conversation. Happy to be with you. As always, I pray that you had a restful and exciting weekend, if need be. Hopefully, it was full of blessings and that you're really enjoying yourself. Um, as we go into this Monday, or we're completing this Monday, and starting to you can definitely start to feel the change in the weather, and fall is quickly approaching. So it's all about that time to start pulling out those winter clothes and everything like that, or at least your fall clothes. So think about reaching into that closet and doing whatever you have to do so that you don't get sick. We're approaching the uh, flu season as well. And I know there's been a lot of concern concerning the flu season as well as with the COVID and how those two things going to intermix and everything like that. So just continue to take any precautions that you need to take going forward so that you'll can remain healthy and safe and rely on your faith and not on your fear as we enter into this new season. And always remember that God has some things or has everything in hand. So just keep that before you as well. Tonight, I wanted to have a little conversation, a quick conversation, if you will, because we're 43 days away from election time, 43 days before you can go cast your vote. And I was just kind of wondering, where are you at? What are you thinking with the things that are going on in the world today? Not just in the United States, but also uh, around the world. I know there was some big news concerning Israel, and there being peace projected in the east. I think it was Bahrain that signed an agreement with Israel, and there have been like maybe three other countries over the past 70 years or so that have agreed to work in peace. And um, the United Emirates have come together as well, um, and they are accepting Israel as well. So, and some of these Muslim or Shiite countries are starting to embrace Israel as well. And I was just wondering, how do you feel when you see these things start to take place? What are some things you're thinking about? Um, how do you feel, uh, or do you get bothered when you start to see prophecy start to take shape? Because all these things, all these events, kind of are foretold in Revelation and Daniel and things like that. And I just often wonder, how do we actually feel, for those of us that are believers? How do we really feel about current events? So that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight, um, alongside with some things that are going on with our elections. Hey, Holly, happy to see you there. Thanks for coming in. I was just going to say, please, I'm here by myself tonight, so I'm hoping that you will chime in and that you'll ask your questions. As always, please feel free to give me a call and we can talk with one another directly. Let me share that with you here. You can call 410-513-9499 is the number that you can call in and we can talk for a few minutes. You can agree, you can disagree. But again, this is all about having a conversation. And that's the big thing. Okay, that we want to have a conversation. Hey, Ray. Hey, Tony. Glad you guys are joining as well. Hope you are keeping warm. I really do appreciate. Just wanted to mention that Ray had reached out, or I saw that she was. She said something on her Facebook page about her church is going to be doing like some book studies, some more contemporary things about race relations and things like that. And one of the books that they're going to be digging into is a book that I actually have, but I had not started to read just yet. But I'm gonna try to be a part of that. So I really do appreciate you inviting me to be a part of that. I'm pretty excited about it. I think the book is, I can almost see it. Um, hmm, It'll come to me in a moment. But I had to dig the book out and go get it so I can get ready for. I think it starts either this Wednesday or next Wednesday. I think it starts this Wednesday. But I'm just saying all this to say I'm excited to be a part of that, and I encourage everybody to like do things that are going to help encourage or help educate yourselves. on how we can better socialize with one another. So I truly do appreciate that as well. All right. So I see Holly's ready to go. She's got some opinions, which I'm not surprised. She says, as far as the elections, these mail-in ballots is terrifying. I do not see either side conceding, and I do not see an outcome on 11-3. So I agree with you. The mail-in ballots, it is a scary situation. But we do need to prepare ourselves and know that we are not going to get true results probably for a week to 2 weeks after the third, just because of the whole mail-in ballot situation, which is why I'm really encouraging people. I personally am encouraging people to go ahead out there and just vote. And I'm encouraging people to be poll volunteers. If you can go out and volunteer to work the polls that day, I encourage you to do that, because the more volunteers they have, the more polls they're going to have open. Therefore, the less likelihood that there'll be as long lines, which I know is what's going to discourage a lot of people. People don't want to go stand in line, especially in an all-day line. So I do encourage you, if you're able-bodied, if you're not at a high risk, mask up, volunteer, go work the polls for the day. I think they expect you to work at least, or you have to consider working at least 15 hours that day. That in itself could be an issue for some, but make sure if you can do it. Because honestly, I do not want, in my opinion, I do not want to rely on the mail-in ballots, because that will be a source that will be used to say that things were rigged or things were done improperly. And I'm with you, Holly. I think no matter who wins, there's going to be some contention, and there's going to be some questions that's just going to further divide us, which I think is a shame. Again, I just put up, early voting is an option. And I was kind of stunned, and I do my best not to bash one or the other, but I was really stunned to hear the president say, go out or do your early voting, send in your mail-in voting, and then on election day, go vote again. And I was like, I was really stunned to hear him say that. Because basically what you're doing is encouraging people to break the law, because in most states that you should not knowingly break the law by voting twice. Okay. So I felt like that was improper as well. Hey, Cheryl, glad you're here. Cheryl wants to know, she says, how can you volunteer to work? You can always go right online, and I meant to bring up the website, and I'll see if I can do that real quick for you before the end of our conversation. I'll try to get that information to you. I just really feel like it's really, critical. I'm just going to pull that website up real quick. Okay. Let me share this, because that's a great question. Anybody wants to really think about doing that? Let me share the screen real quick, give you the website. All right. So that's the website there. So let me make sure you can see that. Okay. Come on, you want to go to U.S. Elections Assistance Commissioner. That's one website. I believe that you can go to either of the candidates' websites, and they also have links there, I believe. I can't say that 100%, but it seems like I did see them there. And I did spend a little time on each of their websites to see what they were saying. And I also think that is also very critical that we do that as well. Okay. Um, all right. So hopefully that's going to be helpful. But you can always do a Google search as well and just try to figure out. It'll let you know where you can go to register to volunteer to work at the polls. Okay. So kind of I'm kind of back my way into the whole election piece because again I just like to know where you at with the events first on the Middle East. And the reason I kind of tying this together is because Trump and his administration, I'm sorry, President Trump and his administration are saying that they had a lot to do with these peace talks and what's happening over there. I'm not a foreign policy person, so I'm not sure all that what he may have done or not done, what they may have said, did not say, played into the final decisions. I don't know that, but I'm just wondering, how do you feel when you start to see these things happening as a believer or even as a non-believer? Again, when you start to see prophecy starting to be fulfilled, how are you feeling about that? And do those type of things come into play when you're thinking about our own election cycle? And what I'm saying is, and why I'm asking you this is because I know a lot of people, your evangelicals, your Catholics, and things like that, traditional Catholics, or just believers themselves, when they see or hear things that President Trump is doing or saying, and that he seems to be initiating or at least helping with the progress that's happening in the East, is that enough to drive you to the poll and say he's doing godly work? Same thing, like whether it be like for pro-life or if it's against gay marriage or anything like that. Are those things enough to cause you, because you see, at least here, that he may be doing these things biblically? Does that give you conflict when you think about the upcoming election? So good. Thank you, Michelle. Like that. It says the list of early voting centers will be posted at elections.maryland.gov. Okay, and there's a little link there. You can always go back and pick this up. So she says, once this finalized, we'll be able to check back and do that as well. So you can always come back and look at this particular broadcast and look at the comments. That'll be there permanently if you want to go back and look at that information as well. Okay. So if he facilitated the conversations, kudos. As you said, though, we weren't behind those closed doors, right? And I agree. And sometimes, I feel like there are those who will always take credit for what others do. Okay. There are those who want to take credit for good things, but they don't want to take responsibility for bad things. Hey, Mom, happy to see you. Thanks, Michelle, for that information. So I see what you said there, Michelle. So again, what is it? Are those things enough? And I'm with you. Well, fine. I'm with you, Michelle. I don't believe that he is the believer that he says he is. But at the same time, just because he can't quote scripture does not mean that he does not believe or does not, or we can readily say that he is not saved. Nobody knows the heart of somebody else. Nobody knows if they ever actually gave themselves or committed their heart to Christ. And certainly knowing scripture does not prove it. So we had to really think about that as well. I try not to be judgmental, although it does not appear in my mind, based on some other things that I've seen. And I'm going to share some scripture. And I actually shared the scripture with you before. Based on some things that I know, it does not appear to me that he is operating under necessarily, at least majority of the time, under the guide of the Holy Spirit. But again, you know, I cannot act as if I know the mind of God and how he works everything, the big global picture. I can't, readily say, well, that's not God's plan, because I don't know God's mind. His ways is above my ways. His thoughts are above my thoughts. So I have to continue to think about that. And ultimately, the only thing I can do, the best thing I can do, is to pray. And that's what I always tell everybody. Okay. I like that too, Michelle. But will you know them by their fruit? Do you see any fruit? And honestly, I mean, if he facilitated in some way and there's peace, that's fruit. Is it enough? I guess is my question. Is it really enough? Is that enough for us to say he is operating completely, or does he just understand what's going to play? And I do think he is a master at this. Does he know what's going to play with different people? He know what's going to because we still are largely an Anglo-Saxon Christian country. Does he just know what to say and what to say that's going to appease and please certain groups? Okay. Is it just further manipulation? The enemy has always been able to disguise themselves as light, and always wanting to be on their side. And I know some commercials I've been seeing past couple of weeks. He's saying, the Democrats don't want me because I'm fighting for you. And it's that kind of language that ultimately bothers me, because that still divides us. That's still very divisive. It's very divisive. And really, thanks, Tony. I appreciate that. He's talking about, Tony says, he still thinks about when he did the photo op, the shoot in front of the church, just so he can hold the Bible. And I'm not sure what that did. Why did he feel like he had to do that? To say nothing of the controversy around that, where protesters were pushed out the way and tear gas was used and all these other things. Not sure why that was important at that time. I never really understood that. Why was it being done? Not sure. I'm sorry, that was Ray that said that. Okay. So those kind of things just bothers me. When he says the Democrats, okay, yes, I understand that we may have a different point of view, and that we may not agree with everything that you say or all of your methods, but at the end of the day, we're supposed to be the United States of America. And just because we may disagree doesn't mean you should continually put out a message of division. Okay. So if he is saved but acts corruptly, then it doesn't matter. And she says, just don't get me started. So I have a tendency to look at the whole picture, the big picture, not just that one or two things. Are there some things that he has done that looks like it's biblical? Yes, I agree with that. But when I look at least my scales, okay, and again, nobody's scales are like God's scales, but when I look at my scales, the things that he do that are unbiblical far outweigh those things that appear to be biblical. And again, I'm not sure if that's a reality or not. Okay. Let me step back for a second, and read some scriptures, and here's why I feel the way I feel. Okay. And I've read these scriptures before. I'm gonna start at Titus. I'm gonna start at Titus 3:8 through 11. It says, there is a faithful saying, and these things I want you to affirm constantly, that those who have believed in God should be careful to maintain good works. These things are good and profitable to men, but avoid foolish disputes, genealogies, contentions, and strivings about the law, for they are unprofitable and useless. And unfortunately, I feel like I see this a lot currently. Um, each one of these things, I kind of see each one of these things happening right now. Okay, the foolish disputes, um, arguing about things that don't mean anything, but arguing for argument's sake, or arguing to get away from the issue or the question at hand. Okay. Just having, contention and striving about the law. I know some things I was reading earlier, they're talking about, the Supreme Court and, future nominees and things like that. And I'll be interested to see how quickly they get some nominees and these things pushed through, which again goes to, is that important for us to have more conservative versus more liberal, or should it be more balanced? And now I personally believe it should be balanced, but I want it to be balanced to the point where it's going to still lean more towards our biblical principles. That's my opinion. But when it comes to it becoming politicized and it's being done so that people will just be voted in for an agenda of a particular person or party at the time, I disagree with that completely. I believe judges should be fair and that they should think about, all of humanity, all of the, what's to say, the good and profitable things for men, regardless of parties. And I just don't like things that are being done for agenda's sake. And then it ends up, it says, reject a divisive man after the first and second abomination, or that would be, abomination would be translated into warning. So you warn somebody the first time, you shouldn't do that. You warn them the second time, hey, we talked about this. After that, you should reject them. You shouldn't try to deal with them any further, knowing that such a person is warped, okay, and sinning, being self-condemned. In other words, they're just condemning themselves. They're putting themselves in Pearl's way, because the fruit of sin, okay, the only wage that you get from sin is death. Okay. All right. My other scripture that I use, and we can talk about this, is the Philippians 2:3 and 4. It says, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than themselves. And again, honestly, I just don't feel like I see that right now. I just don't feel like that's what's being demonstrated right now. Let each of you look not only for his own interests, but also for the interest of others. All right. And certainly, that's what I think that when I was young, I grew up in the mid 60s. I was born in the mid 60s, grew up in the 70s and 80s. It's I was raised in the Air Force family, okay, military family, to respect your president. The president was the most highest office there is in the land, and they stood for something. It was something to be looked at and to be honored. But it just doesn't seem to be the same. It was an office where the person that sat in that office had a moral compass, and they just try to do what was right. Now, I understand I was small, I was younger, and maybe I was somewhat naive, but it's just, how I kind of still expect that office to be ran. And again, I've said it before. I know that all of our presidents, I can't say all, but many of our presidents, especially in the past, I don't know, 50, 60 years, had their own flaws. Okay. They were not perfect. There were certainly scandals surrounding many of them. Not all of them had showed the proper morals or the proper ethics that needed to be shown while in that office. So this is not like the first time we've had a president that brought baggage in with him, that has baggage while he's there, and will have baggage afterwards. But for me, just looking at it right now, and maybe it's just with age and with experience, I just see it more now than I've ever seen it before. Okay. Let's see. Holly says this. It says, I have not made up my mind either way. I cannot say that I have seen many, places from the Democrats candidates or either. That is not to say I am for our president. I do not think he is a wholesome person, but I do not see evil either. Okay. And I don't know anybody's heart. So I don't want to say he's just an evil man. I don't agree with most of what he says and does. So I'm certainly not saying that. And by no means am I saying Biden, Vice President Biden is so much better or anything like that. But I can only go by what I see and what I hear. I can only go by what I see and what I hear. So those are my thoughts. I appreciate you guys chiming in. Let's see. Michelle says this. It says, huge difference. One, repented, though it may have been after he was caught, he repented. One has never apologized for anything. Wow. Okay. I agree. For me, there is an issue when you can never say I was wrong. I made a mistake. And then you try to justify what you have done. You try to justify your actions. Okay. I also have a problem with those who would follow somebody that does that just because that's their party. That's because they don't want to say they made a mistake. They don't want to admit, maybe to themselves or to others, that they backed the wrong person. Okay. So for me, that's an issue. Okay. So when there's no humility, and currently I don't see humility from our president. I don't see him being humble. Okay. And once again, he likes to talk about and speak about, all the great things he's done. And again, I'm not even sure if all those things that he talks about, that he tries to take credit for, is actually true. Okay. Nor does he ever really talk about, I made a mistake here. I did this wrong. The most recent thing being, with the whole pandemic situation, how much he knew, how much he didn't know, things like that. And then he just simply says, well, I didn't want to start a panic. I don't think we should lie or we should be lied to by our leaders. I would also say, I think we are missing leadership in a lot of areas, especially when it comes to the pandemic, since I'm talking about it. When you see that, for instance, when you see empty football stadiums, baseball stadiums, and you're saying to everybody else that it's not safe to gather in large numbers, all right? It's not safe to get together in your backyards and things like that. You take a bigger risk of contracting or infecting others with this virus in case you're asymptomatic. Um, but then you see at rallies, uh, leaders, not just the main leader, but those that are around him, very few of them using masks, very few of them encouraging those that would come to rallies uh, not wearing masks. Okay. To me, that I don't understand why that takes place. I don't understand how the NFL gets it. And yes, I know they are letting some crowds in, and I know they are letting some people in. Um, but when you look at other countries that, like, uh, that do soccer and things like that, and they let people in, and their numbers rose, things like that, because they want to go to these spectator sports. And the NFL paid attention to that. And it's not that I'm a great NFL lover or anything like that. I do love football, but when you look at that and you see how they are doing different things, but then you look at these different rallies, um, just it feels to me like they're being done just so they can be, or that person can be in the spotlight. And we all know that popularity is what's important to that person. Um, and that's been important and been echoed from the very beginning. Um, so, I don't know. It just bothers me when I look at those things, and that just says to me, uh, if there was any chance at all that wearing a mask reduced, I don't know, even if it was just 30%, okay, of you being infected or infecting somebody else, why not encourage that as opposed to not doing it, or just saying, it's going to disappear. We don't need to do it. Um, that just bothers me. It's bothered me from the very beginning. How it was downplayed and everything like that. So, all I can do is really complain and talk about, what I don't like about President Trump, because he's at the forefront right now. I can't really complain much about Joe Biden because I haven't seen him do enough, at least in recent years, where I feel like he's doing things wrong. And by no means am I trying to convince anybody to vote one way or the other. As I said before, I just want everybody to take the time to vote. So let me show you their websites. I'm gonna show them both to you, just because I want you to start to pay attention. Because, like I said, we're 43 days away. Um, and as has been said, you can do early voting. That's fine. Um, you can do mail in. You can do all of that. But what's most important in my mind is that you vote. That you make sure your voice is heard, and you vote the legal way. Don't go to the polls if you already mailed in, or anything like that. Okay. So, yeah, there's something to that as well, Michelle. I kind of read ahead of time before I put some things up. But I agree with that. When you start looking at inner circles, and those that have surrounded you, one thing that, stands out to me is how come when it comes to this current administration, how come it seems to be such a big revolving door when it comes to this administration? And that door speeds up the more you disagree with the president. I don't recall so many short-term service with President Obama, nor with man, just left me completely. Bill Clinton, with George W. Bush, his father, even with Reagan. I don't ever in recent history remember seeing all these people that come and go in short terms with an administration. And this is the first time I remember seeing anything like that. And so many that have been convicted or accused of doing something illegal. I just don't ever recall seeing anything like this. So that bothers me as well, and I remember part of his campaign promise was, how he knew the best people. He knew, you know, what to do and how to drain the swamp and everything. Um, but has the swamp really been drained? Does he truly know all the best people? Again, does he just know what to say? Okay. Um, and I agree with you, Ray. I think there are many within his party, the party that he joined um, for the election. They don't necessarily support him, but because that's their party and they need to stay in control, or they feel they need to stay in control, that's the team, they support without support. You don't hear a lot of our Republican leaders uh, giving him a lot of support, unless he's there's some big event or anything like that. You just don't hear it a lot. You always see the same few faces. You don't hear from all of the other Republicans touting how great he is and what a great job he's doing and things like that. I mean, I just kind of pay attention to that kind of thing. So I agree. I don't think, um, you know, I just don't think that he is the correct person at the moment. And I know I have close family members um, who may feel a little bit different, and that's fine. But if that's how you feel, again, make sure that you vote. But I'm gonna go back to what I said at the beginning. If anybody's able to be a volunteer, work the polls so that we can get as many polls open as possible, because I really do feel like this mail-in, it's already been set up. It's already being set up where it's going to be debatable, and I would much rather not allow it to become debatable. And then it's just going to be like, it was rigged. He's already said is no, if he loses, in his mind, it's like, it's no way I should be able to lose. There's no way I'm going to lose. And if I do lose, that means they cheated. Well, if that's the attitude, you already know that he's going to say it was rigged, it was fixed. But I feel like, in my mind, from my understanding, the more people that can actually get to the polls and vote lessens the chance of them saying it was because of mail fraud. Okay, and that's what's really being set up before us. So I forgot what I was going to say before that. But be sure, go out and vote. Go out and vote. Oh, so what I wanted to do is I'm going to show you their websites and just click on a couple of things. Because again, what I was saying is I want you to start really paying attention and start looking at these things. Look at what they are saying. Listen to what they're saying and what they're going to do. Listen to their policies and what they plan on doing with their policies. Listen to and watch. What are their future plans? Are they talking about policies? Are they talking about how to move forward? Are they talking about uniting? Or are they still talking, it's an us against them mentality? And again, I really believe that the president, the number one citizen, if you will, should be thinking about how do I unite my country, not how do I further divide my country. And to unite a country, you have to use words and you have to use speech that unites, not words and speech that divides, that sets up an us and a them. That never serves to unite. So let me show you this first page, and I'm going to show you the presidents first. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the pages, but again, just take some time and go out there and read what they're saying. Okay. So this is President Trump's webpage, set up different from Biden's. I'm going to show you a little bit more. But he talks about, secure your vote, register to vote, request a ballot, check your registration. All of that's good. Show your support. Promises made and promises kept. We'll look at that in a second. Hope fulfill our promise to keep America great. Okay. And when I think about that particular statement, and I know others have said this as well. Right now, he's saying to keep America great, but right now is our country great? It just, I don't know. Right now, is this the country that he envisioned that now makes it a great country again? This stuff like the social unrest and the economics, how the pandemic was handled and all those things. Is that what his vision was to be great? And I'm sorry, I don't mean to bash him, because again, I respect the office, and I think the office should be respected, and the person that's in the office should be respected. But when I hear to help keep America great, is this the great country he envisioned? Because right now, this country does not feel great, at least from my standpoint, at least from my position. It doesn't feel great to me. It just doesn't. So what else? Then of course you have a shop now where you can buy some, swag, some presidential swag and things like that, and tell you how to follow on Twitter and things like that. So good website. One thing I did notice, it says promises made, promises kept. Let's go up here. Okay. Now I'll let you know with those little pop-ups where you can sign in and everything. Once you sign in and sign up and all that, you're going to be inundated with emails and requests for a lot of different things. But these are the things he's talking about, at least on the surface. Economy and jobs, how he jump-started America's economy. Immigration, protects the American homeland by enforcing immigration laws. Foreign policy, by promoting fair and reciprocal trade. President Trump put America first. Okay, national security. President Trump rebuilt our military, crushed ISIS. Regulations. President Trump removed red tape and ended unnecessary regulations which stifle economic growth. Land and agriculture. President Trump created a task force on agriculture and rural prosperity. Law and justice. President Trump partnered with local communities and works with local law. Energy and environment. President Trump reversed years of policies and locked up Americans. Energy. And restricted our ability to sell other countries. Government accountability. One of President Trump's biggest campaign promises was to make government by and for the people. President of healthcare. President Trump repealed the Obamacare individual mandate, expanded plan choices, and increased competition. Infrastructure and technology. President Trump built stronger in communities by ensuring Americans have access to quality infrastructure. Social programs. President Trump and his administration protected life by fighting back against illegal drug shipments. Education. President Trump and his administration supported the expansion of school choice across the country, so every parent has a voice in their child's education. And veterans. President Trump made sure the government fulfilled its commitment to our country veterans by reforming the VA, including firing 500 of the worst managers in the agency. Okay. So, when you look at this, and obviously when you go, you can actually click into each area, and it gives you a little bit more information about what he's done, different quotes and things like that. But really, just on the surface and reading those things, do you think that's a reality? Do you think those things are real? When you look at those things, do you think that's what happened? Okay. And I'm not saying it didn't or it didn't. All I wanted to do was try to encourage you, or start encouraging people to start paying attention, and don't listen to what you just hear from other people. Don't just rely on what you see on Facebook or Twitter or even Instagram. Don't just rely on those things, Actually take some time in research. Okay. So I want to share Vice President Biden's page as well, because you're supposed to give equal. Okay. Time to everybody. So this is Vice President Biden's page. All right. So, his whole thing right now is the soul of the nation, fighting for the soul of the nation. Right away, you see things about, donation, pictures, the latest. You see statements, tells you about how to volunteer, how to go about joining, build back better than ever. And then here he has his different points, leadership in times of COVID, equality for people with disabilities, education beyond high school, and then the opioid crisis, securing our values as a nation of immigrants, providing healthcare for Americans, stopping the epidemic of gun violence, LGBTQ inequality, advance racial equity in the new economy, securing a clean energy future, ensure the future is made in all of America, and create a caregiving and education workforce. Okay, now, obviously, these things are different than what the president website looks, but for me, and again, I don't agree with all of them. Okay, I don't agree with everything that's being said or done. But again, I don't think he would ever agree with anybody 100% with anything. But for me, it seems that they are more socially minded, and they're thinking about the things that are affecting us today, where they're talking about things that need to be changed. That's going to make the country better. All right. And that's why that echoes so well with me, because I want to see change for the better. Okay. And most of these things that I see here will make, to me, America great again. All right. And again, once again, I don't know, let's pick one. Advance racial equity in the new economy. You click on that, and you'll get information on his plan and things like that. You actually get points, okay, of what they want to do. And for me, and it's just my personality type, that is major. That is major because I want to see an actual plan. I don't want to just hear about what you've done or what you plan on doing, okay, which is something that was never really done in the previous election as well. You never really heard a plan. It was always, I'll let you know. But, there was never a plan, in my opinion. And that's just, part of my personality type. That's something my personality type expects and wants. Not everybody needs that. And everybody wants that. But I think that's really important. All right. So again, yeah, Ray, you said it. I just said it. When you look at President Trump's, you don't see plans going forward. It's always about what he did. And, there were some things like with the immigration thing, I didn't read all of it, but I didn't see anything about the wall. That was one of his big things. We're going to build this wall. And that was a major campaign promise, and how Mexico was going to pay for the wall. And we haven't seen any of that. And that was a major thing. So, but again, like you just said, I don't see plans for the future. How is he going to help make this country heal after the last 4 years of this now great America? Okay. Mike, hey, Mike, glad you was able to join. That's a great resource. We need to be more informed about the platforms. And I agree. And that's why I put it out. And I think a lot of times we don't want to put it out there, or we don't want to take the time to educate ourselves. A lot of times, and it's something else. And, I don't want to make it seem like he's being decisive or divisive. I'm sorry, not decisive, but divisive, just because Like when I look at his website, it gives you a brief description right up front. And then what happens is when people see that, they read that and they think that's the whole story. And they aren't going to do that next click. Whereas with Vice President Biden's, he gives you the title, but then for you to learn more, you have to actually click in and get more information. You know, for me, it's just being more transparent. Is how I see it. And maybe I just read too much into it. But that's just how I see it. I just see there one party, or let's just say the Democratic, the Democrats are showing us things that are going to help us heal. Okay. Whereas the Republicans are showing us this is what we've done and this is what we're going to continue to do. And then when I look at the United States and how it is right now, is this what we want? Is this the great America that we want going forward? So that's where I'm at right now. Again, I just wanted to encourage others. I'd love to hear more from you. Okay. So she, like me, she doesn't agree with all of Biden's ideas, but the social issues are important, you know, and it really comes down to it. What's important to you? And I think that kind of over the years, you know, it used to be way back when, you know, when these parties first started, it was the other way around. The Republicans were more social minded. Okay. And Democrats were more economical minded. And now it's kind of flipped. And I think that's why so many of Democrats, and I don't mind saying I'm a Democrat, we tend to lean towards the Democrats because more social minded. We're thinking more about the people than just the economics. That's not to say that the economic piece isn't important. It's very important. Okay, that's the only way we're going to grow and become a world-renowned power. Okay, we can't get around that. But at the same time, you cannot ignore the social things that are going on. And again, is this the great America that we want to live in, that we're seeing right now? Okay. Now, certainly, I'm not blaming the pandemic on President Trump. He had no way of controlling that coming. Okay. Well, never mind. But I do believe that he could have made different choices that could have saved more lives. In my opinion, he could have made different choices. And instead of just thinking about, you know, again, just thinking about what is it that, or what's going to make him look good. Okay. Instead of what's going to be best for the people. Instead of just thinking about what's going to get me reelected. I just feel that it could have been handled a lot different. All right. African Americans tend to be the conservative sect with the Democratic Party. I agree. I consider myself to be Democratic, but I do still consider me to be on the conservative side. I'm not very liberal when it comes to my thinking, being Democratic. So I kind of agree with what you're saying there, Mike. African Americans, I think, certainly I have not done a poll or anything like that, are somewhat more conservative than liberal. Okay. All right. So Mike always feels like his leadership choices have always been suspect. And I agree with that as well. You know, from the very beginning, there's been a lot of different things that have happened, including, starting with the choices he made as far as his cabinet, the people that he wants to surround himself with. Obviously, he's made issues or made many mistakes there. You know, any great thing that's happened through this country, okay, where he's been able to have influence over, I think that he's been left wanting. Okay. The most recent, again, being the pandemic. All right. And again, yeah, Tony's with me there as well. You know, the pandemic thing, I just think things could have been handled different, you know. And I can remember, and you can always go back and look. You can look, you know, there's like, they start off this small number, maybe 60,000, maybe 80,000, maybe 75,000. but you kept seeing these numbers keep going up more and more and more. Okay. And now it's almost like it's acceptable that we have gotten to 200,000 people, 200,000 deaths because of this pandemic. Well, I mean, just unacceptable to me. I think it does, in my opinion, did not have to be that way. And it's still denying science. Okay. In the fight with his leaders that are in place, those who know the science of infectious disease, to still fight with them. And to be honest, I'm starting to get a little suspect of Dr. Fauci as well, because I think he may be starting to light the camera a little bit too much. But, he gave us the warnings. He gave us the warnings and they were ignored. Christian Republicans are concerned about abortion and fiscal responsibility, which is why I have voted Republican in the past. And I've voted Republican in the past as well. I've always done my best to try to vote for those who I believe were most biblically aligned and that I most agreed with politically as well. So I don't vote Democrat because that's my party. I vote for who I believe is the best person to help the country move forward, And I'll be honest, if President Barack Obama didn't have a strong message, if I did not vote for him just because he is black. And I know there were a lot of people that voted for him just because he was black. No, I voted for him because I believed in his message. Okay. Again, his message was about unity. His message was about making our country better for people. Okay. Healthcare, education, all those things were important to me. That's why I voted for him, not because he was black. All right. And some people may have said, you know what? I think I heard, what's his name? From Family Feud, Steve Harvey. He's like, yeah, I don't care what he was going to say. He black, I'm voting for him. I don't agree with that. And maybe that's my conservative side. I don't believe just voting anybody there. I believe in voting the right person for the right time. Says, however, Mike is responding again, once again, talking about, Christian Republicans, how the view of race and social responsibilities has given me pause. And I agree with that as well. I think true faces are coming out. What people really think is happening. Okay. You can see their true thoughts. Okay. And that's good. And I'll just say it's just good. I was going to say in many ways, but that it's just good that you now see where people are at and what they think and how they feel. So I think that's really important. I value that, and if that's how you feel, if you disagree with me, again, feel free to disagree with me. That's fine. But let's just be honest. Don't be divisive about it. Don't do things, underhanded, secretive. Those things aren't godly. God doesn't want that. He wants us to be open and honest. All right. Vote for those who are biblically bound. Okay. I say always start with the word, end with the word. If it lines up with the word, fine. If it doesn't, throw it away, reject it, as we saw earlier in Philippians. Just make sure who's aligning themselves truly with the Bible. Okay. Just because they say something that sounds biblical, just because they may do something that looks biblical, pay attention to what their overall message is about, their actions. Okay. Pay attention to what they say, what they do beyond an event. And I think that's what has gotten a lot of people confused and lost. Just pay attention to the whole thing, not just, they did this one thing, they did that one thing. Pay attention to their entire speech, not just because of what they say in public that sounds good, but then and you even hear later what they said in private. And that's happened multiple times as well with this current president. And this is 24, 24 episodes of this, and I think I've done pretty good with not really saying too much about how I feel about our current president. But and it's not like I got millions of followers or anything like that. But if this convinces anybody just to take the time to go out and look, pay attention, 43 days away from election night. 43 days away. And y'all know how quickly days go by. Don't be asleep for the next 43 days. Don't be fooled for the next 43 days. Okay. So, coming up on an hour, I thank you again, as always, all you who are regularly here with me. I appreciate you guys coming again this Monday. Hope this wasn't too boring. I don't do a whole lot of political talk. I kind of just listen and pay attention as much as I can. But since I do have somewhat of a platform, it's something that we can talk about. If you have other questions, other thoughts, please feel free to hit me up. Let me know how you're thinking, how you feel. If you have questions, as always, please take the time to send me some questions. Topics that you might want to think of talking about. I have some topics waiting to talk about. Just want to line up some really good guests to have conversations with. I do have 2 or 3 lined up right now. So I just encourage you to send me those things, because again, I don't want this to be a one-way conversation, and I don't mind reading your comments. I really do hope that some of y'all will start calling in so we can talk like we're on the phone. I know this is 2020, but do y'all remember talking on the phone instead of just text? I remember those days. Not that I was much of a big text talker. I mean, a big phone talker. I don't like talking on the phone much either. But when it's time to have a conversation, I like to have a real conversation. Though I don't mind, excuse me, I don't mind. Looking at your comments and relaying them and reading them and things like that. I don't mind that either. But sometimes I like to hear another voice other than my own. Michelle says early voting is a great option. Each time I voted early, I've been in and out. Okay. And that is a great option. If you can do that, do that. But again, the more often we can get to the polls, okay, the less likely. Well, you know what? To be honest, no matter what, there's going to be controversy. It's going to be controversy no matter what, especially if the wrong person wins. And I guess that depends on who you believe is the wrong person. It's going to be controversy. But I think the more actual physical votes there are, the easier it'll be to count that than these mail-in votes, in my opinion. So again, thank you. Please share conversations. Please, if you have not done so, follow the page, like the page, share the different broadcasts in your groups, things like that. Please make a recommendation about it. You can go to the page and make a recommendation about the page. That helps boost its popularity as well. But just know that I appreciate you. I love you. Mike, I know that he has Mike Dorsey. You can always check him out on Tuesdays for his virtual Bible study. Be sure to do that. If you're in the area on Wednesdays, the past few Wednesdays at Mount Pleasant, we've been doing a drive-up worship service for an hour, 6 to 7. That's been awesome. We do social distancing, or you can stay in your car. That's been wonderful. I've really been enjoying that. There's a lot of things to keep yourself engaged biblically as well. You got Sunday worships that you can watch different broadcasts from Mount Pleasant, from any church in the city that has that capability. There's a lot of good preachers out there that you can get a great word from. So keep yourself engaged, read your Bibles, pray for one another, operate in faith, not in fear. Know that I love and appreciate all that you all do, and being supportive. But as much as I love you, always, 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 always remember that God loves you more. Nobody can love you more than God loves you. He proved it by sending his son first to walk among us, and then went to the cross to pay for the sins and the debt that we had, okay, that we could not pay. He went to the cross for that reason, so that we can be right before God the Father, that we can stand upright before the Father and say that we are righteous through the blood of Jesus Christ. If all that sounds foreign to you, if you don't understand that, again, you can send me a comment. You can direct message me. Okay. You can call, leave a number, leave me a message. I'll be happy to reach back out to you and talk about what does it mean to be safe in Jesus Christ. I know a lot of people say saved, but a lot comes with that word saved. So I want you to know that there is a heaven and a hell, and you can be safe from going to hell and be secure in going to heaven. So if you're not sure what all that means, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to talk to you about that. Again, thank you. I look forward to seeing you all next week, same time. Be blessed. Stay safe. Keep warm because the weather is changing and you know how people can get sick. Get your flu shots. Do whatever you need to do to stay warm and stay safe. Again, stay faithful, not foolish, and everything will be all right. Be praying for you. You pray for me. Know that I love you. Talk to you again soon.